Ya estamos de regreso en tu programa Detrás del Cine, pero antes de continuar, quiero agradecer a todas las personas que están al pendiente del programa en señal abierta en el canal 4.1, en el sistema de cable en el 215 y 1215 en HD, así como también por internet en www.tvlobo.com. Nosotros continuamos con más de Constantine.
One of the things that I wanted to do with this movie was really try and set it in a reality. It's based on a comic book, but I did not want it to feel like a comic book movie.
And if you look at most artifacts are not these gleaming, chromed out, beautiful kind of, pieces of metal. They tend to be things that are faded and worn or rusty or bent or broken or cracked. Some things are really almost unidentifiable.
I was drawn to this film because you read the script and it's, every prop guy would go, this is really fun to do.
So what's new?
Holy water ampules from the River Jordan.
The holy hand grenades were little vials that actually were Christmas ornaments that were filled with holy water. They were a pretty simple little thing. We came up with all kinds of elaborate ideas, and the director, Francis, went, I think he would have grabbed some household thing. So we just went and got some Christmas ornaments and made these. When we did the scene with Keanu in Hell, where he smashed it against his chest, we made the same prop out of breakaway glass, so it was safe for him to use. Hell apparently doesn't have a lot of water in it, so it's the conduit to get back, so these are rather valuable to him while he's there. When we did the scene with Balthazar getting hit with the holy hand grenade,
That's better.
we made them out of water balloons. That way you could hit them right in the face and there'd be no danger of any accidents.
Jesus didn't die from being nailed to a cross. He was killed by a soldier's spear.
Spear of destiny.
This is actual recreation of the real piece. It's based on an artifact in the Habsburg Museum. We were able to get some very good photographs of it. This is supposedly the spear that pierced Christ's side at the crucifixion, and hence it has great power because it has the blood of Christ on it, literally. But no one really knows if this is actually the spear that pierced the side of Christ. And this was supposedly given to Constantine in the 3rd century, and since then it had a colorful history. At one point, the spear was broken off, the bottom disappeared. They found the bottom 100 years later. They supposedly put the two together with this piece of gold material, and then they took a nail from the true cross and actually inlaid it into the center here and wired it on. So they basically wanted to maximize the holiness of this piece. It disappeared into the hands of Hitler during World War II, and the legend is that whoever owned this spear, whoever wielded it, was invincible in battle. And after the Allies recaptured this, Hitler died 2 hours later in his bunker. One of my favorite props in the show, it's Constantine's lighter, which we made an oversized lighter because the director wanted something that just had a bigger feel. This here is the medal of Saint Benedict, who was the patron saint of fighting witchcraft. We also put a little inscription on the side, which means, let justice be done, though the world is destroyed. It was carved out of brass metal, and we actually used the inside of a real Zippo lighter, because being prop men, we want to make sure it works, and I tell you, there's nothing better than a Zippo, because it lit all the time. It was great. The pack of cigarettes that Constantine smokes, it's a fictional pack of cigarettes, and it's something that Beeman brings back for him because it's a Chinese brand, which translates Yellow River. And we had one of our artists in the art department do up a fantastic little design on it. Looks better than a lot of real cigarette packs. This is a rubber version of some brass knuckles that we made. These are supposedly melted down from holy relics made out of gold, and hence had great powers to them. A little crucifix poured into it, a little filigree, and a lot of Latin lettering.
May God have mercy on you.
We got the Great Book of Latin Inscriptions, and so this was some religious inscriptions from like the 16th century. We put 4 of the 7 deadly sins on each knuckle, And crosses here in the front. We talked about doing some work where they would CG and do makeup effects of little crosses smoldering on Balthazar's face, but I think they pretty much decided that would just be lost in all of his goo.
Come on, you don't need its protection. It'll be like back in the day.
This amulet is what Hennessy uses to protect himself from evil spirits when he travels in the ether. And we were getting tired of doing crosses, so we wanted to do something that was a little different. This is actually based on a symbol for the Holy Trinity that we did a little variant on with a circle and put some archaic lettering onto it, which probably no one will ever see except me.
Think of it as a bulletproof vest.
John, there is no 17th act in Corinthians.
Corinthians goes to 21 acts in the Bible in hell.
They have Bibles in hell.
The Bible from Hell is a book that Beeman uses to find out who Mammon is and what he's trying to do with the Spear of Destiny. We had an illustrator do up some pictures for us. I went to great lengths to actually write the copy for the script and then have it translated into Latin. The cover's rather obscured at this point, but it's actually wrapped up in plastic in the movie, and it's all covered in like a black slime.
Holy shotgun's pretty good, which I end up wreaking some havoc with, which is fun. Boom.
This prop went through a lot of changes in the film.
We had first thought that it was maybe Constantine who put it together from some of Beeman's old notes, kind of like Leonardo da Vinci, only in your garage. And he would tape a flashlight to an old gun and can of butane, and it would look really funky but be an effective magical tool.
It was sort of a mess. The intentions, I think, were right going in, but the gun just did not look good. So we then just started to build the different kinds of relics that this gun came from. And then we started to try and unify them so that when they locked together, you could say they were actually originally designed to be pulled apart and put together to form this gun.
In the final film, you don't really see the assembly of it, but we did one scene where the prop is assembled. So actually all these are different components of holy relics in Beeman's lair.
You're not supposed to be up here.
This would snap together, like that. Pull the cross out.
So we did a test with it on our microwave system.
That snaps in. Thank you, Dragon's Breath. Fuck.
Hello. 27. 19.
There you have it. The holy shotgun.
Parts getting clean.
It was a hard prop to build because it's about, 8 props in one. We had to keep the weight down so it was easy to use. It was a functioning prop. The light on it had to light. It had to fire. There's a lot of elements to it that were mechanical, which always makes it a lot more challenging. Because so many of these props were from different places and different eras, we tried to get some things to look very different. I think there's an overall look to the film that's reflected in the props.
Constantine es un personaje heroico, pero combate al mal dentro de él. Su vida ha sido profana y llena de egoísmo, y para poder entrar al reino sagrado debe consagrar su vida, deshaciéndose del egoísmo y permitiendo que entre a su vida el amor.
Early on in my approach to this movie, there was just certain areas that stuck out to me as problematic when sort of starting to come up with concepts for them, and one of them was hell. The original script, hell is a black void, and it was like the ground was like an oil slick, and there were some bones lying around. I thought, that's all been kind of done before. What would make it more relatable? And I thought, because I'm approaching everything in a sort of a realistic way, it'd be really interesting to give a real geography to hell.
Francis had done a lot of visual homework to really set up what he wanted. He showed me pictures, he had a lot of references. He wanted hell to be a freeway from the get-go.
There's also a little bit of a joke of, the LA freeway system being hell.
I had an idea early on about what I thought hell should look like, and in one of my first meetings with Francis and Naomi Shohan, I suggested that hell look like that moment when the heat wave from the nuclear blast hits everything just before the shock wave, which blows it all apart. And when the heat wave hits, things stream off violently, they melt, they catch fire, they start to blow apart, but they aren't really disintegrating until the shock wave hits. And I said, maybe hell is that moment during a nuclear blast, but it lasts forever.
And I thought that was just great. I mean, that just kind of finished it all off. So you just have this insane, super directional wind.
We had videos of nuclear tests, the ones that they did in White Sands. We also had a videotape from a place that researches decomposition of bodies. So we looked at decay and destruction.
Naomi started working on design sketches for what hell might look like. And in the end, we came up with the hell that you're going to see in the movie.
By the time that we started working with Mike and Francis, a lot of the conceptual work had been done for the Hell Freeway. They'd done storyboards and illustrations and even some animatic work. The developmental work that we were doing was more in taking these illustrations, you know, like the key art that we've seen, into the three-dimensional world.
To create the hell environment, we used virtually every trick in the book.
They pull them up and down.
The Hell Freeway set was actually pretty cool. The production designer and art department did a fantastic job of filling an entire stage with a recreation of a freeway that had been destroyed as if in an earthquake, and also a lot of cars that are sort of in this process of erosion.
Despite the size of this set, this is a very small part of the environment. We are creating the entire city of Los Angeles as if it were in hell. In this film, hell is essentially a parallel universe, and we're trying to stay true to Los Angeles.
So we would start with these photographic pictures of Keanu walking down a freeway with a lot of wind on him, and we started building all that in the computer.
Everything you see that's here, all the cars, whatever you're looking at, will actually be replaced by CG objects. Because as the wind blows, all of this erodes. The husks of cars that have gotten so light because they've been so eroded are blowing through the air like tumbleweeds.
So the art department had one row of gigantic Ritter fans like 6-foot diameter blades, just constantly blowing. Originally the plan was to put a lot of Fuller's earth or like dirt in the air so that the scene would be really thick atmospherically, but for a lot of reasons, health being one of the more foremost, we weren't able to do that. So we ended up putting all that stuff in digitally as well.
A lot of particle animation to create hell. We rendered huge amounts of volumetric debris. They're not just two-dimensional layers of smoke. They hit things, they wrap around them, they have eddy currents.
This is all the airborne detritus, flakes of metal, debris flying through the air, a lot of dust, a lot of fire.
I think we ended up with something like 8 different types of hell atmosphere. We had a really pretty dense environment. From there, we take all those elements, we start packaging them together in the compositing stage. We also add a lot of things like heat distortion, or sometimes throw some of the elements out of focus to simulate a camera's depth of field, add flashes and lighting effects, just put all the elements it takes to create a hell shot together.
I just pulled a soldier demon out of a little girl. Looked like he was trying to come through.
I think the inspiration for the demons in hell came from some photographs that we had seen of cadavers that had been through autopsy, where we had seen these remains of these human beings, which essentially had no brains.
And I just thought, wow, this is like, there's something really insane about these things, you know, not having a brain, not having a soul, really something really empty about and sort of scary about that. And I just thought that that was really kind of a cool, weird approach to these kind of, you know, automatons.
We wanted the demons in hell to not just be frightening, we wanted them to appear to have a lot of weakness. We wanted them to seem almost like they weren't smart enough to know anything except they had to devour humans who came to hell. And they were sort of pathetic about the way they went about it. You know, they had to do it in groups and they were kind of sad looking.
So they all have really bad sort of curvature of the spine, and they're all really skinny with these really bloated bellies.
With the help of the guys at Stan Winston's studio, we set about designing the creatures for the movie. And Stan's guys built a puppet of one of these creatures, which was used in a couple of the shots.
They did a great job. The detail that they brought in was just amazing.
every other shot in hell or anywhere else where these demons appear, the demons are computer graphic.
With the scavengers, what we needed to happen was for it to start off relatively slowly, like the creatures are stalking Keanu at the very beginning, and then for it to progress into this crescendo at the end where it's this mad chaos. Because they don't have eyes, we had to use other senses, like their sense of smell and also their sense of touch. So we have them, they're sniffing the air. That also helped us develop the personality of these creatures.
Close your eyes.
Why?
We created another species of demon called Cephalobites. Every single scene of a cephalite in the movie is computer generated. They actually only appear in one particular attack sequence in the film, and it was great fun creating the sequence. The inspiration for these characters came from a bar I went into in Yugoslavia, and we were given drinks in stemware with the stems broken off. So you had to finish your drink and you couldn't set it down, which is a particular kind of hell of its own. And so we had these creatures, and I said, well, if they had no legs, then they would just be destined, determined they always have to stay in the air. These poor guys could never land.
The design of the Cephalobites' wings is very much like a bat's. So we did do a lot of research into how bats fly, their motion.
The general drive of the attack is that they never quite get in there. They're completely disintegrated. So we had a lot of discussions because there's been disintegrations done in movies before, and we really wanted to make sure that this was new and interesting. Imagining a real creature being completely dissolved away, there's a lot of stuff involved there. And without getting disgusting, you want to have that kind of stuff show up. You want to see that density and mass. We talked about the wing panels and how they would dissolve differently because they're these very thin, leathery kinds of things, as opposed to the wing bones and wing structures, and then compare that to the bodies. And you can do kind of interesting things with having dust blow through those areas and how they dissolve, and trying to make it fun and interesting.
This is a sign of Mammon.
Initially, Mammon had a very, very brief appearance in the film. The Stan Winston guys built a Mammon puppet because all we had to do was just a little shock cut. And then it turned out his part grew because his performance was so good, I suppose. Francis liked the idea of Mammon and what we could do with him. So we created Mammon in CG at Tippett Studios. And he walks into a scene in hydrotherapy hell. And then we see him later through the skin of Rachel, but much more pronounced and much more clearly than we'd ever anticipated. So we wound up with a bigger part. And I understand his agent is negotiating for more money right now, I'm not sure.
Mammon was a really interesting character, beautifully designed. Right off the bat, you notice that he has this real sense of evilness to him. He has these two big club feet. He has a gammy eye, it's like it's been fused over. He has this one bulbous eye, and also he's very pale and emaciated, but he just has this real presence of being extremely evil.
Francis wanted him to look frightening, but not overpowering. Definitely like a son, the child of Satan, but certainly big enough and strong enough and evil enough to carry the day.
In the one shot where Mammon is actually coming towards Angela, we needed the start of the shot to seem almost non-assuming, and for the tension and the drama to build throughout the shot. So there were many ways that we could actually incorporate that. His motion at the beginning of the sequence was a little bit gimp-like. He's more hunched over, and then as he comes closer and closer to Angela, we were building up the tension with the camera continually tilting upwards. At the same time, we have his body flexing. We have these controls where his veins and his tendons on his body are actually increasing throughout the shot. So all of these little visual cues helped with that sense of tension, and then right at the very end there's the big punch.
Filming can be hell at times. I wish I can say we had like a really funny story while we were shooting in hell, even though it's kind of a complex, really super effects filled sequence. It was actually one of the easier and simpler things to shoot for some reason.
Hell's the one thing that's got to really work. If it doesn't work, you kind of blow the whole game. And it's the one thing where you could really fail. So hell was kind of a real hot point.
I didn't come to this movie with many preconceived notions of hell, maybe because I'm Jewish, I'm not so sure. But the traditional images of hell, which are flames and fire and brimstone and those kinds of things, only to me meant that hell was a very violent place. And I wanted to make hell a violent place, a place that was scary and nasty, not someplace you would ever want to spend any time at all.
El director intentó que el filme se basara en una realidad, aunque la historia se basa en una historieta. Muchos de los objetos que se utilizaron eran feos, doblados, torcidos, incluso hubo algunos que no se podían ni siquiera reconocer.
Wings are nearly as complicated a character as any character I've ever worked on in a movie.
Lucifer.
But when we started to work on Angel's Wings, Francis's first comment was, I don't want these to be white, beautiful, angelic wings. I want them to look like bird wings. And we said sort of like raptor wings, like, you know, hawk or eagle wings, which are large and they're kind of light on the underside, dark on the back. And he said, yeah, like that.
I don't know where the white wings actually came from, but, you know, a lot of these old sort of Italian masters have dark wings on their cherubs and angels, and that's where I pulled it from, and I thought it was just more interesting. That and the fact that angels were truly, you know, God's warriors. I don't think they'd all be pure white.
We use the wings as just another representation of what was going on emotionally with their character. You know, when there's surprise or trying to portray dominance or other things, the wings just become another sort of expressive element in the shot.
We got lots and lots of reference from you know, photographs of birds, books. Spent a lot of time actually on the internet just finding pictures of bird feathers, bird wings, bird anatomy, looking at lots of anatomical sketches and papers about how wings move. And of course, we've kind of doctored them up to be more like what those wings would be if they were on a person, to give them a different sense of scale and changed the anatomy a little bit.
We needed big wings. So there was no way you could do that mechanically on the set and make it work, and the actor couldn't perform with wings that big. So the wings were created in CG and added to the characters, Gabriel and the angel characters, later.
Because it's CG, we have the ability to do this incredible articulation in terms of the motion of the wings that would be extremely difficult and expensive to do mechanically. The other challenge, of course, is the look of the feathers and getting them to feel photoreal, and Owen Demers, our texture painter, did this amazing variety of textures for the feathers and translucency. So it's actually a really beautifully crafted bit of artistry in the CG feathers. It's always great to start with real photography of things as a guide.
The Stan Winston guys built lighting reference wings, which we could animate. They were on cables, and we could make them fold up and down to put into scenes for our lighting reference.
There was potentially an idea that if we did in a close-up where we just needed to see a little bit of wing, that maybe we could push these up behind and just use those and avoid turning it into a post-effect shot. But the general direction and look of the wings was to get something a little bigger and have a little more motion in it. So we would set things up. So we actually had to track her body position very tightly, and we would recreate that in the computer so that our wings would line up exactly with her shoulder blade motion.
I think we've made our angel wings, I love them. I think they're just absolutely gorgeous. I'm very proud of them.
There was a big car chase that was in the movie at one time. It was this really elaborate setup to kidnap Angela. I remember we had this meeting about how expensive it was, literally a day or two before the Matrix trailer came out for the second film. And I saw a piece of that highway chase. I mean, how are we ever going to top that chase sequence? So we knew we had to change it. And I remember meeting with Keanu, we were having a script meeting, just he and I, and we were sitting around talking, and I don't even remember how this came up, but we came up with the scene of Rachel getting sucked through the walls of Balthazar's building, through the cubicles and hallways and the conference room and out the window. And
the outbuilding sequence was an amalgam of some beautiful special effects work built on full-scale sets by Alan Hall and his guys, by a great deal of CG that was contributed by the folks at ESC, and by Rachel herself, who shot green screen in most of these shots.
What's wrong?
I don't know, I just feel...
It was really pretty simple. Rachel has to be pulled all the way through this building, one room at a time. So we built all of the rooms, with the exception of the room full of cubicles, which was built as a miniature only. We built the conference room, of course, as a full-scale set. We built the hallway as a full-scale hallway. Then working with the art department and with Alan Hall, I had them build breakaway sections of those that would automatically blast out on cue. And then we shot all those as background plates. We shot Rachel on a green screen to put into that. And then we added on top a great deal of CG debris and papers and staplers.
48 frames a second. Would you want to change anything, or let's just safety and do it?
Want to add some more sparks? I think they went off before you actually saw them.
I don't really bother reading the action bits because I read the dialogue and the psychological stuff. And I obviously skipped through quite a few pages.
Number one position, please, guys. Here we go.
Are we going all the way up? I should probably throw out my chewing gum at some point.
Chewing gum.
Is this a real thing or a half?
No, it's a real thing.
Okay.
Because they might be preparing for whatever their character's doing or whatever else is going on in their life at this moment. But my concern with them not only is their performance level, but is their safety generally.
R.A. would be a great cult leader. You know, he could get you to do anything. I promise you, he just looks you in the eyes, and he just has this way, and he'll just say, I just want you to jump off that cliff, and it will be fine. And you go, oh, okay. Like as wild as and stuff here.
Like you're just a ragdoll.
Well, I am just a ragdoll.
She accuses me of hypnotizing her is what it is, and it's really not that, but I try to be very calm with her and with all of them, but also make eye contact. I'm not trying to avoid telling them the truth.
I might just sit down for a second.
Absolutely.
Can I?
All right, well done.
There was a time when I thought, I don't think I can do it. He just took me aside and he just said, you can do it. And I was like, oh, I can do it, yeah. He's very persuasive, Ari.
Doing the split.
Oh, okay, they should stay in the same position.
Stay, not as extreme in the kicks.
Okay.
Okay?
When they come in to work with us and we've done our job and they're doing their job, the idea is it's strictly acting now. It's not about survival. It's not about being scared. It's all about acting.
It's fun. It's fun.
So that's it. Well, I don't know. I think and then
we'll have that shot yesterday.
What we did yesterday, you get sucked through those doors.
Yeah.
And this shot is a shot of a series of office cubicles that are being blown aside as she's being pulled through the building. We couldn't really do it full scale because this would be a very large set, so miniature was a natural decision.
What we're using on this set here is a motion control system. We have the cart that goes underneath the set that has the doll represents the actress in the movie. She's getting pulled through the set.
There were, I think, about 80 cues on the way through for all the walls to be pulled apart. They're all pulled apart on wires. All these air mortars are blowing stuff in the air. Things are all flying around. And the camera drops as all the walls of the cubicles blow out. And just at the end, you see this little figure fly under camera, which is Rachel. So we had to build a little maquette, a little model of Rachel, which you see behind me.
Action!
Oh, and look, it was great how it just went over her head.
Another successful shoot.
We didn't have to build that office out of CG. We didn't have to sit there and animate papers flying through the air for that shot. We really could get the shot essentially entirely in camera, see dailies the next day, know we had the shot, just do a little cleanup and go away. And this was a perfect application of that. And then the final last shot, the camera's pulling Keanu through, and you wind up with Keanu stopping at the window, and the camera continues to pull back as if it's Rachel's POV. And you see Keanu standing in the window of this office building, and you see Los Angeles laid out behind him. And this was my favorite shot in the movie.
Es así como nosotros llegamos a la parte final de Detrás del Cine. Mi nombre es Wendy Alvarado, te espero la próxima semana.